3 years of marriage flushed down the toilet after this woman released a video asking the internet and exposing her husband and their marital situation and asking, hey, will I regret my divorce? Because I think I might divorce my husband. And of course, I covered this video thinking, hey, sounds like she's going to fall through with this divorce, but she sounded like she wanted to keep things going and was hoping that he would fight back. And after going online and embarrassing not only herself, but her husband, who probably didn't like the fact that she was out here airing everything, she released this video saying, he divorced me. Oh, man. Let's check it out.
So y'all, I told y'all that I am in the process of getting a divorce, and after 2 days of no contact, I reached out to my soon-to-be ex-husband, just asking him, like what was going on, because I filed everything that I was supposed to file, and I was waiting on him to do his part. And I think a little piece of me was hoping that he would just, be like, oh, I'm gonna change. We can make it work. But I texted him to ask him if he did, and he sent me a paper of the fact he sent me the paperwork just showing me that, yeah, like I definitely went down there and filed. And it's like, okay, period, clock it. I did not, hey, you standing on big business. I did not expect you to do that. But now I'm just like a little bit sad because I'm like, oh my God, everything that I have fantasized about and in my brain just tried to think like, oh yeah, we're going to be such a happy family. I got to let all of that go and come.
Make this type of situation, because we've seen this plenty of times. You filed the papers for the divorce. You got online and started talking shit about your relationship and opened the whole world up to opinions about you and your husband. We haven't heard anything from him. I sent him an invitation saying, hey, man, you can come on the coffee pod. You can tell your side of the story. Chances are he probably won't. You have children. He probably doesn't want to embarrass his kids more. He understands that the internet's forever, but you're somehow disappointed in the decision you have made already. She will regret this. She will regret it. Things don't fare out well. You are going to be a single mother now. It's about to get very, very real. That's unfortunate.
Come to the realization that in a few months it's going to be over. But then I'm also thinking about, okay, if it takes like 3 or 4 months, that means that I could be single by Thanksgiving, and y'all can invite me to y'all Thanksgivings, and I can see y'all fine cousins and y'all fine homeboys. And then also I can have a real good Christmas because he gonna give me a Christmas gift. And then my birthday is in January, so he probably gonna get me a birthday gift too. And then by Valentine's Day I could probably have a boyfriend. So yeah.
The disrespect. After only 2 days, she said 2 days of no contact, right?
I reached out to my soon after 2 days of no contact.
2 days of no contact. You're already talking about one of your followers. No, but she's joking. She should. No. No. You're already talking about one of your followers possibly setting you up with a boyfriend, and you're already ready to move on, give up the cheeks. It's just sad. It's just sad. And it's not going to end well at all. And they're happy to have you. They're going to accept you with open arms here in the comment section, because all these women are also miserable. Top comment here says, I feel like we just found out about the husband last month. And she says, you should have never found out, respectfully. All right. Somebody else who says, now that's my kind of math. Here's somebody else who says, okay, I see what you did here. Here's someone else that says, this is how I spend my check before I get it. Somebody else here added, I like that timeline. And here's somebody else that says, LOL, girl math is crazy. I love us. Sending good vibes. Ha ha ha, we're so crazy. We just broke our family. Ha 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 ha. What's wrong with you? You're entering hell. Don't you realize the dating pool is crazy? You're not going to just fall into another relationship. I know you think that on the outside looking in, that there's somebody there who's going to meet what are most likely going to be unrealistic expectations, and it's going to get easier. It's never easier than the first time. Statistics say that the second divorce is more guaranteed than the first and the third, and it just gets harder as time goes on. But Chisha, some people remarry and they stay together. Yes, the exception does not make the rule. Right here, girl math. These chicks think this is cute. I love girl math. They're talking about girl math. They're over here ruining households. Divorced 8 years now. Met the love of my life 2 years later. Remarried and approaching our 2 year wedding anniversary in August. It gets better. Actually, not for most people. Actually, not for most people in their relationships. Here's somebody else who says the emotions will be all over the place until about 5 years after the divorce. Damn, 5 years sounds like a bad time to me. Here's another person who says Capricorn energy on to the next, clock it. Next comment he reads from one delusional friend to the next. The men love a fresh out, a relationship glow, so you got it. Yeah, they love it for busting cheeks, but not for a serious marriage. But you know what are these? What is she gonna do? She sounds like she's ready to be a city girl for a little bit. Somebody else, she says he probably just wanted to be outside and let him. How are you blaming him? You initiated the divorce. This is crazy. Here's somebody else that says, girl math is so simple. As a woman, we always have an inch of hope, but this wasn't aligned with God's plan for you, baby. Another person who says, it works out, sis, 6 years out, better than ever. Another person who added, well, the good thing is that you don't have to wait a year. Another woman here who's also initiating her divorce says, OMG, I'm still waiting on my soon-to-be ex of mine to file. Like, what's taking you so long? Somebody else who says, the math is mathing low-key. Okay. We're out of here. We're out of here. Of course, guys, curious to know what you think. This is just crazy that we were just talking about this, and here she is.
Drink the coffee, it'll make you feel better.
A video just popped up on my For You page where a woman was asking if happily married women are gatekeeping their happiness. As a happily married woman, the answer is absolutely yes. And I'll tell you why. A lot of times when we try to say things like we have a good husband, we have a husband that doesn't cheat, we have a good man, there's always going to be someone saying, oh, enjoy it for now. It's not going to last. There's always someone that's going to try and come rain on your parade. And that gets old pretty quick. I personally like to share things to encourage other women because there is so much negativity, especially on social media, a lot of man hating. I like to share my perspective because it's like, girl, not all men are like this. Not all men are crazy. Not all men are cheaters. But when you try to share, it's like people don't want to hear the happy. They don't want to hear the positive. They want to hear all the negatives. Yes, happily married women, a lot of times we're out there. We might not be very vocal because people always are so negative. And think about why it's so easy to always believe the negative versus the positive. Like we could have 10 women come out and say all men are cheaters and everybody's like, yeah, I agree with that. 100 women come out and say, I have a good man. I know he's not cheating. And people are like, are you sure? Are you sure about that? How do you know that? So I guess my point is like, just because you might not see a lot of happily married women sharing about their relationships, that does not mean that they don't exist. Most of the time, we decide not to talk about our relationships or share anything about our relationships because we're just tired of the negativity.
Right.
It's like we have to convince people that we're happy. And it's like, why bother? Why
Right.
just be happy in obscurity?
This makes all the sense to me. The amount of married women who I know personally, and I mean people who are in a satisfied, I don't like using the word happy because you know happiness is a feeling. And this is not to say that they aren't happy um often, right? But the amount of women who wouldn't trade their marriage for anything else and are actually satisfied, they're not online. They're not online talking about it. And it simply just comes down to what's the benefit? What's the benefit? If you are a chick today, I saw a recent study that talked about how a woman who enters a relationship loses two friends or average of two friends. That makes a lot of sense. It's very, very rare that you find somebody, especially when it comes to chicks, where one person is married and they go out of the way to hang out with single people and they're actually in a healthy relationship. In most cases, they usually think to themselves, I need to find more married women to hang around. You're speaking a different language. You're the women who can get a man. You're the women who aren't the men haters. You're the women who aren't stuck in delusion. They don't want to hear things like, oh, I don't mind cooking for my man and he helps out and even cooks for me as well. They don't want to hear things like, you know what? Maybe marriages aren't all about money and what you can get. Maybe it's about two people with mutual values coming together. They can work together. They can contribute together. Sure, some of them may be taken care of by a man, but I assure you, if it's going to last, she's doing what she can within that household to bring value in that household as well. And she's not trying to convince him that her job is harder than providing for a full family. Why would you want to sit around and argue with these chicks? You guys see these chicks. If you're happily in a married situation, giving them advice, they would label you a pick me, they would label you a hater. I almost start to think after a while that maybe the best thing is just to cut off your single friends. And I mean, be friends from a distance. Of course, you don't want to like cut off your single friends. And I'm talking about as a woman and even as a man, if those friends aren't willing to respect your current marriage. This also actually happens with men as well. You have men who don't want to hear anything good about a relationship. It's the same thing, on both sides. And this isn't them saying things like, oh, it will most likely not work out. No, no, no. They will wish bad on you. All right, so let's read a few of these comments. Top comment here said, I've noticed the moment someone starts praising their man publicly, it almost jinxed it. I'm okay keeping that happy part of my life to myself. I don't have anything to prove and don't feel any pressure to share with the world. It's also just one part of me. I'm so much more than my husband. And so this is like a politically correct response. And imagine if a man said this. You as a man, if you said something on the lines of, I don't share about my wife because I'm more than my wife, she's just a small part of my life, they would look at you and be like, what would they say? That saying they usually say of like, keep this love from me or something like that. But if a man's like, yeah, I love sharing about my wife and she's a big part of my life. Now it's like, all right, this one seems more like a balanced comment. It says, we're happy because we're private. A lot of truth to this. A lot of truth to this. I don't think people getting online with their relationship does much to help in most cases. Somebody else who says, we don't need outside validation. Somebody else here added, never secretive, but always private. Here's somebody else that says, you can't share happiness with people that commit to misery. This person here says, my husband has no social media. It's pretty nice. And somebody else who says, I've been married 21 years. We rarely acknowledge each other on social media. I don't need social media to tell me what's up. I already know. Here's another person who says, I keep my marriage very private. I also stay away from those married folks who are always fighting. I don't want that negativity around me. Here's somebody else who says, yes, and today is my 15th year anniversary. All the married chicks are gathered up here in this comment section, and you won't see them releasing content because they will most likely be labeled pick me's in many cases. Here's somebody else that says, my most sacred relationship on this earth that brings me peace in my life is not the internet's business. Wow, that's wonderful. Here's somebody else that says, I have friends ask me all the time why I never complain about my husband. She goes on to say, it's pretty simple. There's nothing to complain about. So they're hanging around her thinking to themselves, Frances never complains about her husband. What's wrong with you? Here's somebody else that says, my friends who are happily married are happy in their lives overall and have full lives. They're not gatekeeping, they're living. Yes. Yes.